Hello, we are live, and this is Professor Michael Huemer, who is one of my favorite philosophers and bloggers as well. Professor Huemer, could you tell us more about yourself? Who are you? What you do?
Yeah, so I'm a professor of philosophy at the University of Colorado in Boulder, where I've been teaching for more than 20 years. I've written a bunch of books and articles, like 70 articles and something like 9 books, I guess. So I'm known for I have a book called The Problem of Political Authority, which libertarians love. And also I've written a book about vegetarianism called Dialogues on Ethical Vegetarianism.
Which we translated in Turkish, and we translated all of it, I think, in a magazine issue.
Oh, great.
There were other articles and papers as well, but it has been published from Oxford University Press, I guess, right?
Yeah. And wait. Okay. Yeah. So all right. So here's the book. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone should buy these books.
Yeah, obviously. But since Turkish lira is pretty much worthless, people usually cannot, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So this is how was your 2022, right? It is New Year, so
yeah, I guess it was pretty good. I don't know. I did the usual. I was blogging and
writing.
Yeah, and I had another book come out that that I self-published. So here's that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't hear. I didn't know that about that one. I know about your Introduction to Philosophy book.
Yes.
Which was, I think, used in some
and then
department. I think it is used in at least one department.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the details. So, I think you are a vegan, not a vegetarian. Are you a vegetarian or a vegan?
Mostly vegan. Mm-hmm. So I consider scallops and other animals without a brain to be fair game for eating. Yeah. And sometimes I have pasture-raised eggs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So when did you become a vegetarian, and how was the process?
I mean, I was in college at the time, so it was decades ago. I don't know, almost 30 years ago now, I think. And why? Because it seemed like it was wrong. Like it was wrong to. I didn't really know at the time how bad the practices were on the factory farms, but it just seemed like it was wrong to, have all these creatures and sort of like, raising them in confinement so that you can chop them into pieces and eat parts of their bodies for fun. And all of this is just because it's like a little bit more pleasurable for you.
Yeah.
And that just seems wrong.
Why didn't you become a vegetarian earlier, right? Not why in college? Did anything nudged you in that direction?
I mean, I had a friend in college who was vegetarian, and he had a bumper sticker that said, "Friends don't let friends eat meat." And which is a variation on a slogan at the time that friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Yeah.
Anyway, and yeah, I mean, before that, I guess I didn't think about it very much. So just didn't think much about the fact that we were torturing and killing other creatures for our pleasure.
Yeah.
I suppose because I was a child.
Yeah, obviously. And how was the book about ethical vegetarianism came to be, right? Why did you decide to write one more book about that topic? Because there are many, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's some, earth-shattering new discoveries. It's not like I can come up with amazing new arguments that prove this thing that hadn't been proved before. No, actually, it's very well known. Like basically everyone in philosophy knows the arguments because they're very straightforward and completely obvious, right? Like, I mean, the main argument is, well, you know, should you like cause enormous pain and suffering to other creatures for the sake of trivial benefits for yourself? No, that's wrong. If anything is wrong, anyway. So, and you're like, and many people have been over this, right? And then there are all these rationalizations that people come up with that are very silly, and the rationalizations are all debunked also in the literature. But you know, so the problem isn't really that we need to figure out the ethics of this. The problem is that we need to get people to fucking listen.
Yeah.
Like most people just refuse to listen. They refuse to think about the subject. So anyway, like, so I wanted to make a book that was more accessible and sort of like in a way more entertaining than the academic articles and books already written, right? Because so there are books written that are, you know, like academic books, right? Which talk about ethical principles in some detail and so on. And, you know, there are these articles in the academic journals, but, you know, who reads those? Right? So I don't know. So I was hoping that I would get like maybe a larger audience, or at least a different audience from the ones who had already read the stuff about vegetarianism.
Yeah. And I also think that in case when you bring very technical arguments to that debate, I think it usually muddles the water because, well, if your argument is very technical, there's usually at least one premise that is problematic.
Yeah.
So if your case for vegetarianism is very technical, for example, like you bring about how animals have desires and so on, and people usually can dispute them, and people want to dispute them. So that I think creates more problems than it solves.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, like, is it disputable that animals have desires? I mean, I don't know. But I mean,
yeah.
If you give some more theoretical claim, like, and having desires gives rise to rights.
Yeah.
That's more debatable.
Especially that one.
And then especially if you start going off on meta ethics. So like, this is one of the things that happens. If you're saying something that's like completely obviously correct, but people don't want to accept it, then they divert the conversation into some very abstract theoretical issues, right? Like, you know, the nature of value in general, like what is rightness? And when you get to that level, then you start thinking like, maybe there's no such thing as right and wrong. And so then you get to do whatever you want. So great. Okay.
There is that. I think subjectivism is pretty much common in college campuses in US, right?
Yeah.
So in case of vegetarianism, some people just think that it is right for me, and they end the conversation like that.
Yeah, but you know, you notice that nobody says this with other issues where they don't want to believe the other thing, right?
Racism.
So, yeah, like you know, maybe the Holocaust was right for Hitler, you know, that was his preference, whatever. And
yeah. So are you so you think some animals are fair game, and have you considered becoming a pescetarian and not a vegetarian? What do you think about pescetarianism?
Well, I don't know whether fish feel pain. There's actually an argument about that. There's some literature arguing about whether fish feel pain. And basically the argument on one side is, well, in order for you to feel pain, the pain signals have to reach your neocortex in your brain. And the fish brain does not have a neocortex. So that would seem to suggest that it never feels pain. But the argument on the other side is, well, fish have pain behavior. So like they will react to a stimulus that would cause pain in you. And they have the kind of nerve cells that give rise to pain in you when they're stimulated. And then, you know, they will do this avoidance behavior, whatever. Okay, and the behavior is modified by analgesics, so it like all makes it look like they do pain. Anyway, so it's not completely clear. The reason why I said that scallops are fair game is that they don't even have a brain.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like really strong. There's a really strong case that they're incapable of feeling pain. So you know, that's totally fine. And then, but for the other fish, you know, I think if we're unsure, maybe we shouldn't eat them.
Should be cautious. Okay.
Yeah.
In case of pain behavior and pain, the relationship between them, I think there's an evolutionary reason for thinking that pain behavior without pain is naturalistically very strange, right? So
Yeah.
if pain has some causal role or for avoiding pain-related stimulus, then it should have some causal properties, and that causal property may be connected to that behavior somehow. So in that case, pain behavior without pain is evolutionarily, at least, very strange, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, so like the behavior would avoid stimuli that harm the organism. So I mean, you can see why it has survival value. I mean, actually, what we should think is, well, why does pain have survival value? Like, if we could just have the behavior without the subjective qualia, then why not have that? And nobody knows, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but okay, but it would be strange if there are two different causes for the same behavior, right? Where one is just like a purely stimulus response mechanism, then the other one involves subjective experiences. That's a bit odd, but I mean that might be the case more generally, right? So I mean, like there are cases where it looks as if animals are engaged in intelligent behavior, but it's not, right? So, there's this anecdote that Daniel Dennett tells about this wasp that digs a hole, or maybe it was some other insect. Anyway, so it digs a hole and it lays the eggs inside, and then it goes and gets some food, and then it checks out what's going on. Okay, no, I've forgotten some details of this. Anyway, so it looks like it's engaging in intelligent behavior. Okay, it drags the food to the mouth of the hole and then checks on the eggs, and then it comes out and pulls the food in. Okay, so then experimenter comes, and when it's in the hole checking out the eggs, the experimenter moves the food away like an inch.
Yeah.
Then the wasp comes out, and then it grabs the food, brings it to the mouth of the hole, and then it goes in again and checks on the eggs again. And then the guy moves.
Does not check whether there's something wrong with it. Right?
And then it just does this over and over every time. Yeah. Like you can just keep moving that food an inch away 100 times, and the wasp keeps doing the same thing. So that's when you realize that it's not intelligent behavior in the way that it looked. Okay. But anyway, so there are times
it would think that there's something wrong with this setup, right?
Yeah. Anyway, so just to illustrate, there are times when it looks as if an animal has some mental states, but then, it kind of doesn't.
So, but in the case of fish, again, you think we should be cautious and do not eat them?
Yeah, I would be cautious. Like if you're not sure, right? So like here's an analogy, right? I'm thinking of shooting my gun off in random directions, and this may be fine because I mean anyway, but also it might not be fine.
Was that Walter Block's argument for against nuclear weapons? I think
I'm not sure.
There was a gun that is pointing to every direction, and the risk for collateral damage is very high. So in case of nuclear weapons, collateral damage risk is very high. We should ban or do not use nuclear weapons in an anarcho-capitalistic society.
Right.
The argument is roughly that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, so you know, like people sometimes raise this in the gun control debate, right? Like, hey, what if I want a nuclear weapon to defend myself? And an obvious problem with this is that, you know, when you use the nuclear weapon, it destroys the entire city.
Yeah.
It doesn't just kill the person breaking into your house. So,
But maybe I have a sufficiently large area, and I just want to use it recreationally.
yeah, recreational bomb blowing up.
Recreational nuclear bombing.
You know, I think the fallout might, you know, travel to other people's property.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, exactly.
But anyway,
So,
I mean, yeah, there's also that, like, well, the rest of us shouldn't believe you.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you say that you're just using it recreationally, come on, you're probably a terrorist. Like if you're looking for a nuclear bomb, you're a terrorist. Come on.
Yeah. So, returning to animals. What do you think about the common arguments against animal rights in general? First of all, do you believe in animal rights? Right. You might think that animals don't have rights, but they have moral status, and that's why we should be vegetarian. Do you believe that they have rights in a stronger sense?
Well, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know why anyone has rights, and so I don't know if animals have rights or not. So, like, I mean, the reason why I believe people have rights is that, well, this is kind of a way of explaining ethical intuitions about particular cases.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like why you can't kill a healthy person in order to steal their organs and then save multiple lives by transplanting their organs into other people. And then, you know, you can ask hypotheticals that are similar, but with animals. Mm-hmm. Like, can you kill an animal in order to harvest its organs and like distribute it to 5 other animals that need organ transplants and save their lives? I don't have very clear intuitions about that. I guess I
don't have as well. Yeah.
I guess I would be okay with doing that. So then that makes me think maybe a utilitarian view about that animals might be okay.
Yeah. So in case of persons, for example, we have more deontological, ethical intuitions, but in case of non-person sentient beings, for example, we might have more of a utilitarian intuition. Is that your view?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Nozick considered this at one point, utilitarianism for animals and deontology for people, you know, but he was never conclusive about that. And I haven't found an argument that's very powerful about that. So,
what are some common academic arguments against animal rights and vegetarianism in general? I usually see that if a philosopher is anti-vegetarian, for example, either he's a conservative or a libertarian. Is that pattern? How do you explain that pattern?
I mean, I guess the left-wing ideology has a lot to do with, you know, like condemning us for oppressing minorities or whatever, oppressing the weak. Okay. And, you know, like raising other creatures in horrible conditions so that you can then kill them and cut their bodies into pieces. This is like the biggest example of oppression and exploitation and so on, right?
And also like, they can't do anything about it, right?
Sorry?
Animals can't do anything about their oppression.
Yeah, they're helpless, you know, helpless, innocent creatures. And okay, so anyway, so like left-wing people don't want to be on the side of that. Although at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to give up eating meat personally.
Yeah.
Because, you know, most people enjoy like pontificating about what other people should be doing more than they enjoy modifying their actual behavior to accord with their values, but whatever. So, but, you know, somehow it became that meat eating was associated with being right wing or something. So like now it's like if you're a right winger, it like becomes part of your identity.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Since they are against it, we just tribalistically think that eating meat is a right-wing thing to do. It is more masculine to eat meat and so on.
yeah. And so
Uh,
this is very unfortunate. Like, right-wing ideology wasn't supposed to be about, promoting massive cruelty,
mhm.
right? Like, if you look at any serious right-wing philosopher, like, and sort of read what values they're talking about, they're not promoting the value of cruelty.
Mhm.
But anyway, that's what we wind up doing. So just because we hate the left-wing people.
One reason is that in case of conservatives, I think some natural law considerations are blocking vegetarian thought in them.
Yeah.
And in case of libertarians, I think libertarian ish rights are so strong that uh, most animals do not qualify
Yeah.
having rights. And also, I think many libertarian philosophers do not have any idea about how to engage with things that don't have rights but moral status. It is
Yeah.
all rights for them. Right?
Yes. Right. Yeah,
Uh,
that happens with a certain strain of libertarians. Like, their whole
Rothbardians and
philosophy
so on.
is centered around rights. I mean, you could wonder whether babies have rights.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, babies have similar mental capacities to animals, right? Or maybe
Mm-hmm.
less, right? They're less competent at getting through the world. So maybe babies don't have rights. And then, okay, but the libertarians like to just not think about that. So,
But we don't play right. We don't just kick babies for fun.
yeah, you can't torture babies. You can't kill them in order to eat their flesh. So, I mean, it seems like there ought to be some room for moral status for a creature that is not intelligent.
Yeah, exactly. But in case of that, most libertarians, I think most people would say that is a human being, it is potentially rational, and we should not just look at where it is developmentally, but we should also look at what kind of a being it is. That is classic neo-Thomistic argument against abortion as well.
Yeah. Well,
And I also remember that you are against abortion somehow. Was that true?
I don't think I said that. Anyway, I have a blog post about how abortion is a difficult issue. I think
We translated that one as well.
And I discussed like arguments on both sides. Okay, but anyway, yeah. As an aside, initially, a priori, you might think there should be a correlation between the fetus rights movement and the animal rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you have a more expansive notion of rights or who has them, then you would favor rights for both fetuses and animals. But in actual fact, in the world, we observe that the correlation is the opposite. That if you believe in fetus rights, you're less likely to believe in animal rights.
Yeah.
And I think this just shows that people are irrational. And the way that
I think that as well. I think that as well.
We don't choose our moral beliefs based upon principles. We decide what we want to believe, and then we make up principles, right?
Or we just identify a group that we want to be part of it and accept the whole package. Right?
Yeah. And so, but and you're like, yeah, but how did this get to be the package? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh yeah, okay. So what were we talking about before that? Before I went off on that random tangent.
Having a live stream with an ADHD person is like that. Like we are just bouncing.
Yeah. Oh no, you said, we have to look at what kind of thing it is. Like, when you have some conscious entity, you have to look at the kind. Well, what do you mean? What kind of thing it is? So, like everything is a member of infinitely many different kinds. And by the way, who cares? Like, so you group an object together with a bunch of other objects, and somehow that is supposed to change its moral status because it's possible to group it with other things. how about looking at the object's actual characteristics? Like, why would I have to look at other objects?
But many people would say that being potentially rational in a human way is something that is more valuable than the alternative. For example, when we have two different embryos, one is a human embryo and the other one is a cow, right? Most people would say that I think killing the human embryo is more problematic, even though mentally there's not much of a difference.
Well, I mean, I don't know if most people would say that. I mean, you know, we
most
kill.
philosophers would not, because they are left wing.
Yeah, no, yeah, we kill embryos all the time. So people who get IVF, in vitro fertilization, like they prepare multiple embryos, and then they just take the one that's best, and then they throw away the others. And there's not like a big movement to stop that. Maybe people don't know about it. I don't know. But anyway, so it's not obvious to me that embryos have moral status, but whatever. But okay, you know, what if, you know, you have this embryo, but actually, you know, that it has Down syndrome, right? Which is genetics. So you could know from the genes that it's going to be a mentally retarded infant if it's born, right? If you allow it to develop. So actually it doesn't have the potential to be intelligent. So then, okay, so then we can kill it, right? Like, well,
most pro-lifers would not say that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and what about like, okay, so let's say, you know, you have a mentally retarded person, can you torture them? Mm-hmm. Just like stick them in a tiny cage, you know, cut off body parts without anesthetic, you know, have them sitting in their own excrement all day. And, you know, can you do stuff like that to them because they're not intelligent? Mm-hmm. What? No, like
no.
How does that have anything to do with, like, you know, who cares how intelligent they are? Like, how does that make it okay to torture them?
Yeah.
And like whatever, or potentially intelligent or whatever, or their species intelligent. Like, just what does that have to do with justifying torture?
Yeah. I was about to say something, but I forgot it. So.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah. So, you can continue if you have something to say, because my mind has stopped for some 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah, you got
it will come back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you got to take notes. See. No. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I guess. Yeah. I don't understand what intelligence has to do with the badness of pain. Mm-hmm. Like. True or false? Like, if you lost a lot of intelligence, then your pain wouldn't be bad.
Yeah.
Like, what? Okay. So this is something that might happen to you. Like, actually, late in life, you might develop dementia, and so your IQ will go way down. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now, suppose you knew that was going to happen to you, and somebody offers you $1 million now, which you can enjoy, you know, in your relative youth. But in exchange, you're going to be, you know, tortured in a medieval torture chamber. But don't worry, because it will happen after you've got dementia. So you won't even know, you won't know what's going on. You won't know who you are. You won't know why you're being tortured. All you will know is this severe pain. But don't worry, it won't be bad because you won't be smart. Like, does that seem right?
I think intelligence is not that much related to the badness of pain, but in case of a stronger sense of self, right? If you have a stronger sense of self, if you have more awareness of your mental states, your pain would be worse, I think.
Oh, I mean, it sounds like you mentioned two things. You said a sense of self, and then you said more aware. So, yeah, if there could be,
they are connected, but
if there could be different degrees of awareness of a pain, then presumably the more aware it is, the worse it is. Mm-hmm. And, yeah. But, okay, so I don't know. Do animals have a lower degree of awareness? Are they less aware of their pains? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Hard to say. But, okay, but the amount of pain and suffering we're inflicting on them just seems like so vastly greater than the amount of pleasure that we get. Mm-hmm. that, like even if they're less aware of it, it seems like it still outweighs the pleasure that we have, right? And so, to just get a sense of this, in 1 year, human beings worldwide kill about 74 billion animals for food.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's almost 10 times the entire human population of the world. The total number of human beings who have ever existed is around 110 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so in 2 years, we kill more animals than the total number of humans who have ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
And and so now, so you compare that to the amount of pleasure that we're getting. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it just doesn't seem like, it seems like the amount of pain we're causing is probably like thousands or millions of times greater.
Mm-hmm. In case of sense of self, maybe I should have said that some animals at least are not subjects of experience, right? In animal rights literature, being a subject of experience is the more common way of saying that, sense of self, whatever.
Oh, well, is that to say that they don't have any experiences?
No, they have experiences, but somehow it is not unified in our way. I don't know. I don't know really.
Yeah, no, I have a hard time imagining what we're talking about then.
Yeah.
Can there be an experience without there being anyone who has it? I don't know. This strikes me as impossible. I don't know. I can't imagine that.
My intuition is to the contrary, actually, because I think we have some pains without. We might have pains without awareness. So it seems to me that it is not that much of a leap to say that there are pains without anyone having them.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, no, this seems impossible to me. Kind of like, there could be some redness, but no thing that's red. It's just like redness floating in space. And I don't mean red light. And it's not a red object. It's just like redness by itself. Like, I don't know. That doesn't make sense.
Experience of redness without anyone experiencing it.
And there, similarly for the idea that there could just be pain, but there's no one who's having it. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess if there could be such a thing, then I don't have any intuitions about whether it's bad or not. I don't know.
I see.
But anyway.
By the way, I am actually sold about vegetarianism. So these are just some technical problems I am curious about.
Yeah.
I think we should be vegetarians, but I don't have that kind of willpower right now.
Yeah.
And
you can't make everyone be vegetarian.
Yeah.
In Turkey. Yeah.
In Turkey, actually, we have very low meat consumption because meat is expensive.
Right.
I think it is around 30 kilograms per person per capita. In United States, it is more like 150 or 200, I think. So actually, India has higher per capita meat consumption than here. So here it is. We are culturally very meat centered in case of what we eat, but we are not able to eat them.
Right.
Meat,
right. I see. So we have to hope that
good for you.
to hope that Turkey doesn't become wealthier, right?
That would make angry people very angry about.
Yeah, there's a good side to inflation.
Yeah, unfortunately. But vegetarianism is, I think, very common in college campuses, especially more elite the institution is, more they have vegetarians and vegans. It is becoming more common, I think.
Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah.
And there are also vegetarian options in many elite universities here.
Yeah.
In Bilkent, for example, my university, we have one. We have at least one vegetarian meal every every time. So people who are vegetarians just came there, and just change the main course with the vegetarian one. Others are usually vegetarian as a default. We just have one meaty meal in every time. So,
yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how common it actually is in college campuses, and I suspect that there are more people who would, they would say that they support vegetarianism, but that they would still eat meat anyway. Like, there are probably a lot more people who know that it's wrong, but they're going to keep doing it. And, you know, like it's very easy, it's very low cost to take philosophical positions. And so like it's very common for people to take positions, even extreme positions, you know, but it's not so common for people to actually make a sacrifice of their own self-interest in their actual real life, you know.
For example, moral nihilists do not live as moral nihilists usually.
Yeah, they usually, I mean, they appear to have moral emotions. They appear to act like normal people. And I mean, I think they even make moral judgments.
Yeah,
and,
you know, they usually do.
Yeah.
And they somehow attempt to make it rational for them to make moral judgments.
Yeah, yeah. Very, very surprising, right? It's very surprising if the view that, you know, a whole class of statements is false has no effects at all on your behavior, even when you're talking about those statements. You're like, you know, just leaves completely intact what you say. You just keep making the statements. That's very
for a moral nihilist, making a moral judgment seems like, what color is the hair of a fairy, right?
Yeah. Like, if, you know, if I don't believe in Santa Claus, like, I don't think that I would keep making Santa Claus judgments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like I would keep talking about what Santa is, or argue with people about what Santa is going to bring on Christmas or whatever. And like, you know, talk about how the sleigh works. How does he get around the earth so quickly or whatever. I don't think I would have all those conversations if I don't believe in Santa. But anyway.
Yeah. So you're a vegetarian and you think that it is a very serious moral wrong. Like, it is not a morally permissible moral mistake eating meat, right? Is it morally permissible or it is not? Is it not?
It's, I mean, so, you know, people think this is hyperbole, but I think being a meat eater is comparable to being a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so, and I'm not saying that
in case of at least in case of mammals, right? It seems very clear. If what we know about their minds is true.
Yeah, and I'm, you know, and I'm not saying that killing an animal is as wrong as killing a person, but you know, the typical American is going to eat around 2,000 entire animals in their lifetime. Yeah. So I am saying that, you know, causing the horrible suffering and death of 2,000 creatures, I think that is comparable to being a murderer.
Yeah.
And okay, and you know, most people's reaction to that is, oh my God, no, that's so ridiculous, that can't be. But the reason why you have that reaction is that your emotional reaction to meat eaters is not comparable to your emotional reaction to murderers.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that what they're actually doing isn't morally. Right? Sorry, what?
It is not based on principles.
Yeah, right. So, you know, most people's heuristic is, when I'm going to judge how bad two things are, I compare my emotional reaction to the two things.
Yeah.
All right. But the thing is, like, no, actually, substantively, what the two people are doing is very similar. But you just have different emotional reactions because one of them is the status quo in your society. Yeah. And there's like just totally compelling evidence that people are very strongly influenced by the status quo. Yeah. Like, whatever, like people approve of whatever their society is doing.
So in that case, do you think we should punish legally people who eat meat? So What do you think about that, the legal side of this?
Yeah, I mean, what the government should do is create more animal welfare standards. Like they should raise the standards for the treatment of animals in the farms in order to reduce the amount of suffering. So there would be some argument, like if the animals were all humanely raised and killed, then there would be some argument that you could have about whether it was okay, right? Because, you know, like maybe if there
Maybe we
weren't all
just
this,
wait for them to die and then harvest them.
yeah, I mean, or whatever, maybe they would kill them painlessly.
Yeah.
So if that was the case, then you could have an argument that maybe the pleasure that we're getting outweighs the amount of pain, because like maybe there's no pain. So, right. And then, you know, whatever.
In that case, maybe in that case, rationality and intelligence might play a role, because intelligence makes people to have richer lives.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, animals have poorer lives than human beings. So, in that case, if we can just painlessly slaughter them, they don't lose that much compared to human beings, at least, because they don't have projects or social bonding like us. They have some social bonding and they lost that. That might be an important moral consideration.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, when you kill any
what we
animal,
lose
it
is
loses whatever,
lighter compared to us.
yeah, it loses whatever value it would have in its future. But you know, you might be like, I mean, if you have a utilitarian view, you might think, oh, actually, we'll just be increasing utility. So like that animal will get replaced with another animal anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, if they have net positive lives, then there's an increase in utility, whatever.
Do you have a utilitarian tendency?
I mean, well, we were saying earlier,
in the case of animals,
yeah, earlier in this conversation, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe there's a utilitarian view of animals. And so it's not clear whether animals have rights. So like, you know, a law that allowed you to raise them humanely is defensible, right? Now, you know, what if we just completely prohibited
animal consumption?
Like, you know, what would happen if the government passed that law today? Well,
it will create outrage.
Yeah, massive non-compliance.
Yeah.
Because the actual situation is like only a few % of the population are vegetarian. So it's like 97% of the people are doing this, or something like that, are doing this activity. However immoral it is, only 3% of the people are refraining from it. So is it going to work to prohibit it? So like, no, right? And obviously this law couldn't get passed because of the 97 versus 3%. But if like by some kind of miracle, somehow it gets passed, it would also totally not work. Okay. But on the other hand, I don't think people would be outraged by having higher animal welfare standards. Like,
you
know,
most people would say that they support it.
Yeah.
So even omnivores. So in that case, I think most people would support it. And in the case of dogs, for example, there's a law that is that has been discussed, and we have that one, but we have a very strange stray dog problem. I think around 100 people die from dog attacks here.
Yeah.
Per year. So, but some people who are animal rights defenders, they think that we should pass a law that pretty much we should have higher standards for dog welfare, at least.
Yeah.
But that law, usually people would support that, but it became a political issue. Like people are polarized because left-wing people usually defended the law about dogs, and right-wing people immediately say that human lives are more important. And it became politicized, and the same dynamic as US is working here as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we have that thing that whatever the left-wing people want, you're just automatically against it.
Yeah. Do you think the opposite is true? Like left-wing people also say that this is the right thing to do and do not do it.
Yeah, I mean, just like the vast majority of people are tribalistic, and so the combination of views they have is largely tied to opposing whatever the people they don't like want. So
yeah. For example, in case of bodybuilding, I think most left-wing people do not do it because they see it as a right-wing thing, right-wing behavior.
Wait, sorry. What is the right-wing behavior?
Bodybuilding.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Going to a gym and lifting weights.
Yeah.
But I think politics has a very strange role in that. But also, it is very healthy, and left-wing people just make them more unhealthy by doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think aerobic exercise is compatible with being left-wing.
Yeah, exactly. They run more.
Yeah, you just don't want the strength training.
Yeah, interesting.
Then you'll look muscular and masculine.
Interesting distinction. So, I think we should take some audience questions. We have some. Okay. You can ask your questions if you want, people. Okay. We have many comments, but most of them are not related to the live stream.
I see.
Okay. İnsancıklar asked, I want to ask a question if it's okay. Did he ever heard about Remiel Nigel? Can we replace some foods that are important for teeth? Interesting. I mean, obviously they are not vegan. Liver, egg, butter. What is the replacements for them? I think he asked.
Okay, I don't know who Ramiel Nagel is. I haven't heard people ask about teeth before.
Yeah, I didn't as well.
I don't know what the issue is there, or what the nutrient is that we might need. I mean, so like I've heard people ask about, I don't know, specific nutrients. That people used to ask, "Oh, how are you going to get your protein?" But yeah, but actually, I mean, there's plenty of plant proteins, so I mean, that's not actually really worrying. Right? There's beans and nuts and whatever. Okay, but then people who are a little bit more sophisticated say, well, there's this vitamin B12 that you need, and vegans are frequently actually deficient in that. So this is like an actual real phenomenon. It's not just people making stuff up. So sometimes vegans are vitamin B12 deficient. Fortunately, there are supplements, so you could take B12 supplements. Also, as I mentioned earlier, it's fine to eat scallops, which are high in vitamin B12, and also protein, by the way.
Okay. I usually don't bring health to these discussions about vegetarianism because I think it is mostly irrelevant. My ex-girlfriend actually is pretty much carnivoristic, and she usually make fun of me by saying that if you don't bring health to this discussion, it is pretty much useless, right? But there is one thing that is very interesting about health, which is public health. I think organizing a vegan or vegetarian healthy diet is more difficult than organizing a omnivorous healthy diet, because meats are usually, if you eat meat, pretty much many things that you need are in there. But in case of plants, you should combine correct things, and make them be more complete in a way. For example, in the case of amino acids, some amino acids are not in some plants, and you should check for which amino acid they have and so on. But I usually think that in that case, most people eat unhealthy, even if they are omnivores.
Yeah.
So, in case of public health, do you think people becoming vegetarian somehow make things worse? In case of US, I think it would make it better.
Yeah.
Because US population is very unhealthy. So, but
Yes.
in the case of Turkey, we usually eat very little meat due to economic conditions. And in case of us, decreasing meat consumption and replacing it with something else would make things worse. I think.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I mean, so as you mentioned, like most omnivores are pretty unhealthy anyway, especially in the U.S. And so, like, the first thing I want to say is, I think when people bring up health issues, it's mostly like rationalization.
Yeah,
it's mostly just dishonest, because like
when I ask that people, they usually do not eat healthy anyway.
Yeah,
But
it's like
my ex-girlfriend would be the exception, because she eats very healthily, and she has exceptional blood values. Whatever.
The cholesterol and everything.
Whatever
exactly. They're testing. But so like if you have somebody who's subsisting on McDonald's or whatever, like, eating cheesecake and stuff like that, it's obvious that they only care about pleasure. They only care about their gustatory pleasure. They don't care about health, so they're just trying to make up excuses. But anyway, what's the evidence on health? There have been studies that people have done about the effects of a vegetarian or vegan diet. So there's some nutritional deficiencies that vegans are more prone to. There are other different nutritional deficiencies that meat eaters are more prone to. There's some evidence that like vegetarians have a lower risk of heart disease and cancer, which are the two leading killers of people. So vegetarians tend to be healthier than meat eaters in general, although this could be partly a selection effect. So it could just be that people who care more about their health are more likely to become vegetarian, and they're doing other things that are good for their health. So
also, I think one factor contributing to that is, since they're minority, since they are thinking about ethical issues and so on, I think most vegetarians are more intelligent, and B, less impulsive than the average person. So in that case, effects on their health would not be the same with effects of vegetarianism as a whole of the country. The whole country becoming a vegetarian country might not be that good in case of health.
I don't know. I think there's mixed evidence on that. But I mean, there's some evidence that they would decrease their heart disease, and decrease the cancer. From having
they are most common reasons for that. So okay. There's one thing that I want to ask you about your opinion. This one is also health related. In case of vegetables and plants in general, when you get your protein from them, you usually get lots of carbohydrates with them as well. So I think there are some people who are more healthier in case they eat lean proteins and not proteins with carbohydrates and so on. So, for example, people with ADHD, I think, benefits from eating not like starchy things or legumes and so on, but when they eat meat, fish, chicken, or beef, they benefit more because carbohydrates are very bad for our brains,
Yeah.
even the complex ones. So at least when I compare my cognitive performance, for example, I eat somehow vegetarianish meals at one time of my life, and my cognitive performance suffered from that, really.
Yeah.
Maybe I should ask you, what should a person with ADHD who knows that his cognitive performance is higher in case they have animal proteins?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm going to mention the scallops and clams and,
Yeah,
the other brainless animals again.
they are usually not available here.
What?
They
No.
are usually not available. Yeah,
Whoa, that's crazy.
I think we have 20 markets here, and I didn't see scallops in any one of them.
Oh, okay. Or clams. Have you tried that?
Clams,
Oysters.
I think clams are eaten here, but
Okay.
uh, they are usually done with some rice and so on,
Yeah.
and not by themselves.
Yeah. So like I'm not a nutritionist or anything, but okay, so my understanding is, well, so there are different kinds of carbohydrates, right? And you want to look at the glycemic load of the
Mhm.
food. So some of them have much higher glycemic load than others. So you want to avoid the high glycemic load foods like rice and bread and
Yeah,
French fries or whatever. And but um, other foods with lower glycemic loads are still carbohydrates, like salad or broccoli or whatever. So just the typical regular vegetables are good for you and have a low glycemic load.
yeah.
And so I know, if you care about health, I would think
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah. I think we should see more of audience questions. Um, do you think that there is do you believe in a hierarchical view of animals, like human beings mostly on top and others having lesser moral status than us? I
Oh,
think you believe that.
um, I mean, I think that human lives are more valuable than animal lives, or most human lives are more valuable than most animal lives.
Yeah.
So, and among animals, some animal lives are more valuable than others, right?
Hmm.
And why? Well, like human beings have like richer lives. There are more valuable things that people are involved in,
Hmm.
right, than most animals. So like if you have a dog, your dog pretty much just like sleeps and eats and walks, and
Yeah.
and it could be good. It's good, but it's not that sophisticated. So
Yeah.
he's not going to be making great achievements. He won't be understanding the mysteries of the universe or anything like that.
Yeah. Most people would not as well, but most people would not understand anything about philosophy or science as well. I
Yeah,
have a very pessimistic view about
yeah,
human intelligence. So average people are dumb.
yeah, yeah.
So
So fair point. Like some human lives are more valuable than other human lives. So
yeah.
it's too bad, but
Um, do you think that leftist vegans usually do not believe in that hierarchical view of animals? They have very egalitarian intuitions in general. So, in case of animals, they don't want to accept any hierarchy because I think they know that animals having a hierarchy would imply a human hierarchy.
right. Yeah. My guess is that most left wing people would know that like human lives are more valuable than animal lives, but would not want to say that.
Yeah.
and, whatever, saying that anything is better than anything just makes them
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Like, yeah, like maybe the universe is just like completely uniform with respect to goodness, right? And anyway, yeah, and then like as I think you're suggesting, like if we figured out why human beings might be more valuable than animals, then whatever characteristic that is, it's probably going to imply that some human beings are more valuable than other human beings, and then
there needs to be some variance, right? Because these are selected by natural selection, and there should be degrees of rationality, intelligence, and so on, and they should be heritable.
Yeah. I mean, like everything varies, right? Like any characteristic that you have is not going to be the same in everyone. So, like whatever it is that you value, there's going to be more of it in some people than others.
Yeah. So Umay Shamlı has asked this question: can we have any claim about eating the plants if they are able to feel pain? If they are able to feel pain, then starving to death is the most ethical thing. But suppose that I think I should steelman that question. Suppose that we discovered that plants are able to feel pain. Then what? What should we do? This is irrelevant right now, but I am curious about what is your opinion?
I suppose we would anesthetize them, but I don't think that this needs to be discussed because plants don't feel pain. So, like you can spend a lot of time talking about bizarre hypotheticals, but it's not practically useful. So, I mean, periodically I have somebody who says, "Oh, but I heard that plants can feel pain." Because of whatever, some weird experiment that somebody did where they burned a plant leaf and then allegedly the other plants were screaming or something like.
I heard about that experiment.
Okay, but anyway, plants do not have a brain, and the brain is the source of conscious experiences, right? And plants also do not have nociceptors, which are the nerves that send pain signals. Right. So there's nowhere for the pain signals to go, and there aren't any pain signals, and there's nothing to pick up to send the pain signals. So it just doesn't make any sense. Right. Yeah. And also there's no behavior. Like they can't, if the plant were to feel pain, there's nothing that it can do because it doesn't have any muscles. So, it can't move away from the predator or whatever. So,
Okay. I am scanning through the questions. So, do you think that if we constructed a completely painless animal production process, there's no problem with eating meat?
Yeah. So as a matter of fact, we have people working on synthetic meat right now.
Meat, yeah.
It exists actually. So people have made it, but I think it's not commercially viable yet.
Yeah.
But I think that is what is ultimately going to end the factory farming and the cruelty.
I think that as well. But interestingly, I also think that because of political polarization, some people would be insistent on eating animals.
Yeah.
Because it is the right-wing thing to do.
Yeah.
Because lab meat is the left-wing.
I think that's right. But so what is actually going to change our practices, what's going to change the cruelty is when the synthetic meat is cheaper and better.
Yeah.
Than
cheaper and better, yeah.
Produced meat. Like, so, and better in what way? Well, like it might be tastier. Like they can put more fat in it or whatever it is that the consumer wants. They can just do that, or they can make it leaner for the people who want leaner meat. And
yeah, I think one option might be that we somehow develop animals without nervous systems, like they are just they just develop in tanks and they don't have any brain and so on. They don't feel pain, but their texture and etc. are similar to animals, other animals, right?
Yeah.
That would be the best option, but I don't know whether any companies are doing that.
Well, but I mean, there's no point in making the whole animal. Like if you can, because all people eat is the muscle.
Yeah, that's
what
true.
we're calling meat. So like people don't want the skeleton, they don't want to eat bones or whatever. So in a sense, it's just like totally wasteful that we're creating all of this stuff just so that we can eat the muscles.
But meat have different cuts, so these cuts have different textures, and most people, I think, want the specific texture as well.
No, yeah, but so when we have synthetic meat, it's like people will be able to control the entire process. They'll be able to make it however they want, which means they'll be able to make like, here's the fatty version, and then like, here's a lean version, and then here's whatever, here's the tenderer version. And like, people will be able to choose what they want because, it's like a factory that can make it whatever way they want. So that's what's actually going to stop people from eating meat. And then the next generation after that, like the generation of people who grew up only eating synthetic meat, they will finally admit that it was always wrong to eat the animals.
And also, I think the issue would become politically neutral in the case of future generations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, most people are not really political. So most people they're just going to do what's in their self-interest. So they're going to buy the thing that's cheaper and, more pleasurable for them.
Yeah, that's true. Aerobic Gürses asked, I've heard egg industry treated chickens pretty harshly, and milk and other animal product industries are similar. So by the same argument, why not go vegan? But you said that you prefer grass-fed animals or...
Yeah, so there are these animal welfare organizations that review, particular companies and then give this certification. Okay, so when I go to Whole Foods, there's like a logo that says certified humane on specific products, right, that have been reviewed by this animal welfare organization, right? And so there are these pasture raised eggs, which is better than free range. And, they have the certified humane logo. And so I only buy those.
Yeah, I see. Episteme asked that maybe there is a threshold when it comes to moral value. Once you are above it, there is no more value to add. I think threshold views are very interesting, but I think they don't work because more intelligence, for example, if intelligence is better, more of it usually is better. If it does not interfere with other value-adding properties of you as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, why would this be true? So suppose somebody proposed that, there's a threshold amount of pleasure that's good. And like, so if you get above this amount of pleasure, then there's no added benefit to having more pleasure.
Yeah.
Why would that be? That's just very strange. And like, and I can think of what the motivation would be for people to say this about intelligence. Yeah. But the motivation obviously has nothing to do with the truth.
Yeah.
Right. It's that, well, it's politically uncomfortable to have some people who are more important than others. So like, that's obviously the motivation. So come on, like, and that's obviously not truth tracking.
I think that as well. Furkanberg asked, I will translate it. In case of anarcho-capitalism, even right to life is seen as a negative right. So doesn't it have a tension between veganism? Even if animals' right to live is a negative right, how could they protect themselves?
So a negative right is a right to not have something done to you, as opposed to a positive right, which is a right to have somebody give you some benefit. Okay, so yes, the right to life is a negative right. It's the right to not be killed. It's not the right to have somebody else support you. Okay, and so, and as I understand it, the animal rights people, like, even if you believe in animal rights, they're only proposing negative rights. they're not saying that like we have to go out and give free medical care to animals, right? They're just saying that we have to not harm them in certain ways. So not kill them, not torture them, or whatever, right? So like it's totally compatible with a negative conception of rights to believe in animal rights in the way that anyone does. Okay, but anyway, like the end of the question was, oh, well, how would the animals defend their rights? I don't know. I mean, how would babies defend their rights?
Yeah.
Like, well, somebody else has to defend them.
Yeah.
Somebody who cares
somebody
about
else
to defend them.
If somebody else do not protect them, then they are not protected, and their rights will be violated. So,
yeah, I mean,
in case of
that's right. So, like, you know, believing in rights doesn't entail that it's going to be impossible for anyone to ever violate them.
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes people will violate rights.
Yeah.
Anyway, but by the way, like, you know, well, animals will try to defend their rights. They're just not as good at it because their hands can't hold a gun. But like, you know, if you attack the animal, then it will try to scratch you or whatever. So
someone asked, great nickname, by the way. Someone asked, with all my respect, I want to ask a question. If eating animals is wrong, then why are they made of meat? I would not ask that one.
Yeah, this doesn't sound like a real question, but you know, like,
it is not a question.
Well, why are you made of meat?
Yeah, I believe you.
Because, you know, we're made of meat.
This is the question I want to ask. Umay Shamla asked, is our main criteria to say eating a creature is ethical? Not ethical, I think. Just due to their ability to feel pain, or is being a living thing is important to say that eating that is wrong? Like, does being a living being have any moral importance? I think the question.
Yeah, I mean, my view isn't really that eating meat is wrong. Like my view fundamentally is that inflicting pain and suffering is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know, why is it okay to kill carrots? You know, we pull them out of the ground and eat them. Well, you know, carrots are incapable of suffering, so you know, pulling them out of the ground doesn't cause any suffering. So, okay, you know, is it wrong to destroy life? I don't know. I don't really see that. So, you know, like all life involves destroying other life. And yeah, you're right. Bacteria are alive. So when you clean the kitchen counter, you're destroying some life. But so what?
Yeah. I think that question connects to whether life itself has any intrinsic value or any value. For example, you might say that destroying an ecosystem is wrong. And if you are not destroying an ecosystem, it is not a seriously wrong thing to do. But if you destroy a forest, for example, an entire ecosystem in a forest, in that case, what you do is wrong, even though there are no, for example, pain-feeling animals there.
Yeah.
Because it is valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people think that, and like, it's not totally off the wall. Like I don't completely fail to see it, but I'm not convinced of that. I don't exactly see why an ecosystem has intrinsic value. So, and I don't exactly see why life would have intrinsic value. Yeah. So, and I feel like maybe I don't understand how other people are thinking about life, but it's a complicated collection of chemicals.
Yeah.
So like as far as I see it, there's no quality.
What if brains are like that as well? What if physicalism is true?
Well, so yeah, as far as I see it, there's no qualitative difference between a living and a non-living thing. Living thing is just like a complicated collection of chemicals that is capable of reproducing itself, or you know, some stuff like that. But so what, you know? Okay, and what's the difference between conscious beings and non-living things? Well, consciousness.
Yeah.
So as I understand, like that's the thing about us that is not just a collection of chemicals.
I see. So Nikki 32 asked, why are we trying to change this when our entire digestive system is omnivorous? Right. Like, because they feel pain.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you would think that I said why we're trying to change it, right? because we're causing an enormous amount of pain and suffering. The amount of pain and suffering that we cause, you know, every couple of years is comparable to the total amount of pain and suffering in all of human history.
Yeah.
And if you could stop that, like if you could do something that would have caused there to never be any pain and suffering in all of human history, would you have done that? And the cost was giving up the amount of pleasure that people get by eating meat for a couple of years.
Yeah. So, A Kitap Cafe asked a very interesting question. If he had the power to pass any law, which punishment he could put in the law for the ones who eat animals, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of regulation would you pass?
I mean, so like what I would suggest is that we should have laws on the producers, requiring them to treat animals humanely. And then what should the punishment be? I don't know. I guess, I mean, maybe we have to experiment. Like we need something that is going to actually deter them.
Yeah.
So, you know, like we might give them large fines, but, you know, like, I mean, in general, I think we imprison too many people.
Yeah.
And like we use too few fines and too much imprisonment. Okay. But, you know, we could see whether it works, right? Like if people keep doing it, then I think, you know, you have to start putting them in jail.
Yeah, I see. But in case of consumption, maybe we should have an ethical meat eating tax, right? Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, like if we're thinking like actually practically, right? Like, you know, given the way the world is, like, you know, we could have taxes on meat. We can't like prohibit it, right? Like, I mean, it's just not feasible that would work. But, you know, there could be taxes because like we have taxes on lots of things.
Yeah.
And people are not revolting, and you know, they're still paying the tax, but it also decreases their consumption.
But that is not very anarcho-capitalist of you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, if we're thinking about, you know, realistically, like we're not going to achieve anarcho-capitalism anytime this century. Yeah. So I don't know. Now, what would happen in the anarcho-capitalist society? I don't know. You know, like in the anarcho-capitalist society, well, I guess there would be different laws in different places. So like some people would still like go on with, you know, horribly cruel practices. Maybe there would be like some, you know, left-wing communities where they would ban meat eating. There would be right-wing communities where maybe they would ban vegetables.
Yeah.
And no one would be able to stop them.
Do you think that in anarcho-capitalist societies, law would reflect culture in a more accurate way, right? Is it connected to culture more because markets are more responsive to cultural norms?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I was thinking the main difference is there'd be more variety. Because, yeah, there are different customers who want different things, so to speak, including wanting different laws, right? And you're like, oh, how can there be different laws? Everyone has to be under the same law. Well, no, you know, like
some countries, we already have different laws.
You know, I live in a condominium and we have a homeowners association and it has rules and they're different from the rules in other HOAs.
Yeah.
So like, it is possible in a sense to choose your laws. I mean, we don't call them laws, but they're just like laws, except they only apply
regulations.
To the association. So anyway, so actually, yeah, you can have variation in laws and you can have a certain amount of choice. Like people decide what you know, neighborhood they want to live in, and that's partly choosing the laws.
Yeah,
that's how it goes in anarcho-capitalism.
I think that as well. But in case of anarcho-capitalism, I think some people think that there will be some communities that are very cruel, right? There will be some communities that allow slavery, for example, or allow pedophilia.
Yeah.
And there will be nothing stopping people, etc. Some people say that, but that kind of communities, I think, will be very, very, very rare. And
yeah,
today today also, I think that kind of communities do exist, just unofficially.
Yeah. No, I mean, you might say, oh, well, but there can be different countries can have different laws. Isn't
Yeah.
that terrible? So there can be countries that allow slavery, which was the case for the vast majority of human
Yeah.
history, right, up
Yeah.
until very
Yes.
recently. So I don't know. And so, like, why are the anarcho-capitalist communities any different from the countries, right? They're just smaller. So yeah, so anything that they can do, also governments can do.
Yeah. I see.
And then, and the only solution is war, but that's not a great solution.
There's an interesting question about psychology of philosophizing from Learn More. What is it that you ultimately get out of vegetarianism? Is it self gratification, or is it the philosophical drive to find the right position on anything concerning us, or is it something else?
Uh, what do I get out of it? I don't know. I'm against cruelty, so I guess I get the knowledge that I'm not contributing to cruelty as much as everyone else is. I guess I'm not, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, most human beings have minimal moral motivation, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a very
that's
small percentage of people who care about morality, i.e., they don't like to do things that they regard as seriously wrong.
hmm
And so,
yeah,
and I think this is like a few percent of the population, right? Like, a large number of people. So the majority of people look like they have some moral sense because, like, they don't go around killing each other or stealing stuff or anything like
hmm
that. But actually, the main reason why they're not killing and stealing is social pressure.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Okay, so social pressure often looks like morality, but it's different because in the particular case where society is not pressuring you to do the moral thing, then they don't do it.
Yeah,
So that's what's happening with vegetarianism. So, like, this is a good test of whether somebody has moral motivation, right?
yeah.
They're not killing people, but they're killing other creatures when it's socially acceptable to do so. So, okay, so then they don't have a moral sense.
We
Anyway,
should
so I
look
think
at
the questioner might be assuming that I don't care about morality,
yeah.
like other people don't.
I think most people do not care about it, and we should look at costly signals of morality, right? From people, not just oh, don't be racist, don't be
Yeah,
misogynist.
yeah. Talk is cheap,
Yeah,
right?
totally cheap,
Right.
cheap.
Yeah. If you have
Um,
people who like to talk about how other people are being bad, but they don't like to actually make any personal sacrifices of their own interests,
yeah.
that's virtue signaling rather than actual virtue.
But I think uh, I'm against using virtue signaling in a pejorative way because signals are all we have about other people. We
Yeah.
don't know what they are like inside usually, and we should look at virtue signals, but eliminate low cost ones from higher cost ones.
Yeah.
High cost signaling is usually honest, right?
No, that's fair. We should have more reliable virtue signals, right?
Yeah,
Like, when people complain about the virtue signaling, maybe the real complaint is unreliable
yeah,
signals.
exactly,
Like,
exactly.
you're pretending to be virtuous.
We should demand more from people so that they use high cost signals.
Yeah, and by the way, just as an aside, like, some of the quote virtue signaling, I think, is not signaling virtue; it's just signaling your political affiliation.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
wait, so, like, it's not appealing to an uncontroversial virtue, right?
Yeah,
Like, you're showing that you're honest or kind or whatever. It's just that you're showing that you belong to this tribe.
affiliation signaling is more accurate. I
Yeah,
think. I think most signaling is affiliation signaling. By the way, not that it is virtue signaling,
yeah.
but yeah. Okay. Mehmet Alan asked, why would it be ethically wrong to eat an invertebrate animal? I might agree for highly conscious creatures, but why would it be wrong to eat a grasshopper?
Yeah.
You wouldn't say that it is wrong, I think.
I would not. No, go ahead and eat the grasshoppers. I would not
But
eat
not
them
others.
because it's disgusting and they have like 6 legs. Okay. But
Did
anyway,
you try it, by the way?
I've not tried it. No. But I mean, there's also discussion. There's like literature on insect pain, you know, as well as the literature on fish pain. The case that insects do not feel pain is actually like really strong. It's like much stronger than for fish. Okay,
Yeah.
so there are cases where like an insect will continue doing whatever it was doing, continue feeding or continue mating, even while a part of its own body is being eaten by another insect.
Okay.
And so okay, that's like really strong evidence that it doesn't feel pain.
Yeah. So I have one last question, but this one is going to be about metaethics. One of my friends, Cemre, actually gave a rebuttal to your ethical intuitionism in his PhD thesis. Do you think what do you think about Sharon Street's Darwinian dilemma? Most people regard it as the strongest argument against robust moral realisms.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I think you do not see evolutionary arguments as very strong in your ethical intuitionism. Well, is that correct? And is your opinion about them changed?
Yeah, I have a great article called "A Liberal Realist Answer to Debunking Skeptics" or something, which I recommend.
Yeah.
But you know, so like there, I bring out the empirical fact about how people's values have changed over time, over the course of human history, and just like they've changed a lot. Okay, and they're converging on a broadly liberal value system. Okay, and so the evolutionary skeptics, they have a hard time explaining this. So if they could, like, are the liberal values adaptive or not? So if they're adaptive, then why were they not held previously in the past? And so, and if they're not adaptive, then you can't use this evolutionary debunking to debunk liberal values, right? So, okay, so like the evolutionary debunking was actually, I think it was a good argument 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, where we're doing all sorts of stuff like, you know, attacking neighboring tribes in order to murder the men and kidnap the women.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, I think there's an evolutionary explanation of why people were doing that. And, you know, insofar as people thought that was a good idea, there's an evolutionary explanation of their beliefs. Okay, but then that doesn't carry over to today when we decide that that was wrong. What looks like today is that we're progressively overcoming the biases that are produced by evolution.
I think debunking current moral practices and moral views is like evolutionary debunking of astrophysics, right?
Yeah.
Because it is too much systematized and too much unconnected from our natural tendencies. It is again very connected, but not as much as the past. So in case of that, I think what you try to debunk is a theoretical framework that is not that much connected to evolutionary background of our emotions and so on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess.
Okay. Please continue.
Oh yeah. I mean, the other thing, like, you know, what you were saying about astrophysics, like, you know, my thought about that, if somebody wants to debunk that, is, well, just look at the actual arguments in the field, and then you're going to see that the debunking is totally implausible, right? So, like, okay, now most people don't know any astrophysics, so like this isn't going to help that much. But say somebody wanted to debunk arithmetic because they're like, hey, you know,
evolutionary pressures.
Or, I don't know, maybe in the evolutionary past we did use arithmetic. Okay, so let's say algebra. Like they're debunking like mathematics past arithmetic. And they're like, because, you know, in the evolutionary past, we wouldn't have been using this, and therefore there's no reason why evolution would give us reliable faculties. Okay, but the thing is, like, no, your reason for believing in algebra is not that you have like an evolutionary theory of why algebra is correct. Your reason for believing it is actually the understanding the axioms and then seeing how the conclusions follow them. So what you need to do is just fucking learn algebra, and then you're going to know that it's true. You're going to see that it's true directly, and you're going to see that more clearly than you see anything about evolution.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the truth of algebra is more secure than the truth of even the theory of evolution.
Yeah.
And I don't need like some other justification for believing it, because when I understand it, I'm going to see that it's true. Okay, and that's how I feel about like some of ethics, right? Somebody tells me like, yeah, you know, like maybe pain isn't really bad because like evolution tricked you into thinking that. Like, well, no, because like I've had pain.
Yeah.
Like I know that it was bad. So like, you know, to me, it's just like a non-starter. To me, it's incomprehensible that pain isn't really bad.
Yeah, I see. But some people would say that morality is very different from algebra. Right? So in case of morality, suppose that we have rationality but not any moral emotions due to our evolutionary past. Would there be morality? And if so, if not, it is just emotions and not something that is connected to rationality. Some people might say.
Well, can we have rationality without emotion? So, you know,
That one would be
I
hard.
mean, there's a very interesting book by Anthony Damasio called Descartes' Error that's about this, about how actually you can't really separate these. And like, you know, we would not be able to make decisions. We would not be able to go through life. So anyway, like it's a hard hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, you can't imagine people not having moral emotions. Okay. So like, you know, there could be a world where we're all psychopaths. And okay. So then would there be morality? And, you know, what do you mean by morality? So would people be forming moral beliefs? No. Like you can imagine a world where people don't have moral beliefs. Now, does it follow that nothing would have any moral properties? No. That would just be a world full of horrible people.
Yeah.
So like it would still be true that they were horrible. It's just that they wouldn't know that they were horrible.
I think a world of psychopaths would be contractualist people, full of contractualist people, because, well, this is in favor of our mutual interests. I don't care about you, but I care about my interests. So
yeah, I mean, well, I mean, the
should
problem
be,
though is like as soon as the other person turns their back, you're like, huh, I wonder if I should break the agreement and just like stab
yeah,
you.
yeah. Agreements would not be stable in a psychopathic society.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, with actual psychopaths, actually, like, I don't know, maybe this is not the relevant hypothetical, but actual psychopaths are not good at long-term planning. Like they're just like, you know, they plan for the next few days or something or whatever. So, and, you know, they would probably break their agreements all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We answered Cemre's question, but if it is not enough, I think he should follow up with an email and we should end the live stream right now. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for being here. I greatly enjoyed our conversation.
Yep. Thanks for having me. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah. Goodbye, everyone.